left-hand side of the screen, Tapu Koko, Gigalith, Tapu Fini, Salazzle, Porygon 2, and Celesteela versus Snorlax, Mimikyu, Hariyama, Araquanid, and that Magnezone on Gavin's side of the field.
Well, the Gigalith being the focal point of James's Trick Room mode could come undone with this Araquanid here. It does so much damage. It obviously has access to a really large Hydro Vortex with the Water EMZ, so that could be a really easy answer to deal with it. And outside of that, I think James struggles a little bit with Trick Room. Of course, he has the Porygon on his side of the field, able to reverse that Trick Room if that's what he wants to go for, and unlock the side of his team that's a little bit quicker. You know, something like the Tapu Koko and the Salazzle could do that, but we've seen it's so hard to stop Gavin setting up Trick Room. He has 2 different Trick Room setters that can be partnered with multiple different things and pretty much guarantee a Trick Room whenever he wants it. So that's something I believe that Gavin has at the upper hand in this matchup. A lot to ask for from James to stop Gavin playing his game that he's been playing so fantastically in every round this tournament.
Yeah, you know, that fake out being faster on the Salazzle than the fake out on the Hariyama could throw a potential wrench in Gavin's plans, but knowing Gavin, he's already seen that possibility and he's already planning on it going into this game. James, though, taking his time trying to figure out what Pokemon will help him in this matchup. I'm sure it's something he thought through last night while he was preparing for the top cut rounds here, knowing that Gavin most likely will be one of his opponents eventually if he made it to the finals. So here we go. Let's see how this match plays out. Again, this is James EAKES versus Gavin Michaels. This is the finals in Anaheim. There's championship points, there's money on the line, and here we go. Snorlax and Mimikyu out on the field for Gavin against the Tapu Fini and the Salazzle on James' side.
Well, the Mimikyu, one of the better answers here, I think, to that potential Salazzle. Of course, Fake Out is one of the ways you can slow down the Trick Room setup, if not entirely stop it, but at least buy some time. Mimikyu being the Ghost type, that's not a possibility for him at all. So he's forced basically to double attack if he wants to stop Mimikyu doing its thing. And that's something that's going to be a little bit tough here. You know, you double attack into Mimikyu. The Salazzle's going to move first and break the disguise, and it's probably not going to have enough out of the Tapu Fini to guarantee a knockout on it. You know, Muddy Water is your best option there. And Tapu Fini not even going to try that kind of play.
Tapu Fini switching out, Gigalith coming in its place, so possibly James hoping for the Trick Room with this kind of a switch. Also bringing with it the Sandstream, which will start dealing chip damage to all the Pokemon on the field, but at the cost of his own Focus Sash. Snorlax protecting itself, Salazzle faking out the protecting Snorlax, and Mimikyu free to use Taunt on the Gigalith.
Well, maybe just trying to stop any setup from the Tapu Fini or anything that's coming in. He doesn't want the Porygon to come in and have access to Trick Room next turn. Obviously a smart play from Gavin not to set up Trick Room, just to see what James does to answer it. So this Gigalith is going to be in a little bit of a pickle. He does protect Snorlax, which is quite smart, but Salazzle is still going to be moving first, so has the option to Encore that Snorlax and stop it doing things, forcing a switch from Gavin. Mimikyu, though, still has access to a lot of things outside of Trick Room. We've seen it use that Ghost DMZ. The Sandstorm has broken the Focus Sash on Salazzle as well, so that could be the target of a really large, never-ending nightmare.
Not the case. Salazzle switching out into the Porygon 2, download, activating, and boosting Porygon 2's attack, but we will see that Z move. It is Ghost DMZ. Will it be that never-ending nightmare? And if it is, did it target down that Porygon 2?
This Porygon 2 could be a really big switch. If it does target that down, it is, of course, not going to be effective at all. It's not targeting down the Porygon, though. Looking to remove the Gigalith from play. The one answer James has to Trick Room. Probably looking to just get rid of that and then win the rest of the game without it. It's not going to do all that much, around 40%, but it is followed up with a high horsepower from the Snorlax, which is still a little bit shy of the damage it requires.
Rock Slide from Gigalith, targeting both that Mimikyu and the Snorlax, breaking Mimikyu's disguise and slowly beginning the process of chipping away at Snorlax's massive amount of HP.
No, Snorlax not getting its berry activated as well, definitely helpful. The Sandstorm, of course, going to wear it down. I think after another turn of Sandstorm, Snorlax would get that berry activation. Maybe it require one more after that. But the Mimikyu's disguise being busted does help it potentially deal with it a little bit. Could get some attacks in there, but Mimikyu has the option to just knock out the Gigalith. We do know it still possesses a fairly offensive threat with the Shadow Claw. Never-ending Nightmare not doing too much, but at least he didn't target down the Porygon. That could have been a really great switch if you think the Salazzle was what he wants to get rid of, but more switching coming in from James here. A switch every turn so far.
Salazzle taking back the field by storm. Maybe not a Sandstorm, which actually Gigalith going away. Tapu Fini coming in, so a double switch from James here, trying to gain a bit of momentum, not wanting to lose the Gigalith or the Porygon 2 quite Yet Mimikyu using this opportunity to set up Trick Room as Snorlax targeting down that Tapu Fini with a high horsepower.
Well, Snorlax looking to just deal with Gigalith, knowing that before the Trick Room goes up, it would be faster, so it would have got the knockout there, and Trick Room would be set up without the Gigalith. James does manage to preserve the Gigalith in this case, but unfortunately a fantastic play from Gavin, predicting that switch out potentially, or knowing that the Gigalith was going to be knocked out by horsepower, felt exceptionally safe in that moment to set up the Trick Room, and now he's in a fantastic position. Snorlax hasn't gone for its belly drum, which is Gavin's choice over the Curse and Recycle, so instead of going for that, it does have the option to do so, will of course activate its own berry. That could be really big, and Salazzle here is just not going to want to take a high horsepower. Salazzle probably forced to just use its fake out this turn, and that's going to be something that can be punished if it carries on like that.
Mimikyu switching out and Magnezone taking the field in its place. That steel typing could help out if Salazzle decided to use a poison type attack. Instead, fake out into the Snorlax, finally activating that berry in a pinch with its gluttony ability. It is going to be that Figgy berry. Muddy Water from Tapu Fini attacking both the Snorlax and the Magnezone. Will it connect? Will it get those accuracy drops? We see a nice amount of damage on both Pokemon, but no accuracy drops yet in this match.
No, the accuracy drops were definitely something James needed to open up a little bit of breathing room in this game for him. Now with the Magnezone and the Snorlax on the field, basically something to answer either Pokemon. Snorlax to deal with Salazzle, and Magnezone to deal with Tapu Fini here. We've seen, even harking back to San Jose, Gavin's Magnezone does hold the choice spec, so Tapu Fini no chance with the amount of damage it's already taken from the Sandstorm and the high horsepower to stick around, and pretty much Gavin setting up, knowing he's got limited turns of Trick Room, saving Mimikyu for later to either reset Trick Room or just start picking things off with Shadow Claw. Very smart play from him to set up in a very offensive, easy to move sweep. The momentum totally sits with Gavin in this turn. Those switches a little bit later have just been punished overall.
Salazzle switching out again, the Porygon 2 taking the field, hoping to absorb that high horsepower or potentially a Thunderbolt from Gavin's side of the field, getting the special attack boost this time. High horsepower from that Snorlax does target the Porygon 2. Thunderbolt from the Magnezone will connect with that Tapu Fini, and thanks to that Choice Specs item, most likely, just like we saw in San Jose, it's enough to get that knockout.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely going to help, and I love the way Gavin's basically played this team. He sets himself up in a position that James has been switching a lot, and he keeps switching and just taking damage on the switches. James trying to play very defensive, but Gavin really putting himself in a strong board position that doesn't mind at all. You switch Porygon 2 in, that's fine of course, but you still take damage of course from that high horsepower, and all that damage is going to start to add up. This Gigalith coming in for James is potentially going to be the slowest thing on the field outside of Trick Room. We saw it move after the Snorlax, so now it gets to move first, but it does have limited options on its attacks. It would probably want to get a Continental Crush off before a potential knockout from high horsepower, but at the same time it really would love access to one of those ground type moves, probably Earthquake, then it would be able to really start working on this Magnezone.
Here we go, Magnezone switching out, not wanting to worry about the threat of that attack from the Gigalith. Gavin sending in his own Porygon 2, revealing the last Pokemon that he decided to bring into this game, getting that special attack boost, while Snorlax protects, not wanting to take any damage at all this turn, but Gigalith making a great read here, using Curse to boost its attack and defense at the cost of its speed, but will it be able to take advantage of that is hard to say. Porygon 2 also capitalizing on this turn, using Recover to restore its health back to full.
That's the kind of play James really needs to get back in this game here. Very slow defensive play, but capitalizing on Gavin just not keeping on going for it, you know. Scared the Gigalith, so he has to switch out the Magnezone and probably keep Snorlax safe. Avoiding the Continental Crush are always possible. Gigalith capitalizes on that beautifully with a Curse, which means the Continental Crush becomes even scarier. And Porygon not too bothered about either Pokemon on the field, just buying some time with the Recover. So James, even at a Pokemon disadvantage, trying to bring the playing field back a little more into his position. This isn't as favorable for Gavin as it was a couple of turns ago.
Yeah, we know that Trick Room will run out after this turn, so this could potentially be Gigalith's only opportunity to capitalize on that Curse's attack boost and defense boost. Not that it matters that much given how little HP it has left. We see Snorlax leave the field and Mimikyu take the field in its place, and finally a Z move from James. It is the Continental Crush.
Yeah, Gigalith making sure it capitalizes on this one remaining turn of Trick Room. Going to try and knock something out with the help of that Curse boost. This Continental Crush becomes even scarier. based on the fact it's based off of Stone Edge as well, so a lot more damage than the Rock Slide variant. He's gone for the Porygon 2 here, so maybe trying to bank on being able to keep the Trick Room away if he gets rid of this. Unfortunately, Porygon 2 carrying that Eviolite, much too bulky to worry about that.
Ice Beam into the Mimikyu. It does a nice amount of damage thanks to that special attack boost, but Porygon 2 on Gavin's side targeting down the Gigalith with a Thunderbolt for that knockout.
No, that's exactly what he needed there. Now it's entirely free if Gavin wants to, and he probably does based on the Pokemon in the back of his team, just to set up the Trick Room once more. The only concern he has to worry about is James being able to reverse it here. There is a very odd potential, and I'm going to say it's a very slim chance that we see a triple Trick Room, which I think could be a bit of a stretch too far. Salazzle going to be able to at least stop the Porygon 2, but still very few answers to the Mimikyu right now. If Mimikyu wants to set up the Trick Room, it definitely has that option too.
Yeah, it looks like Salazzle could either fake out the Porygon 2 or possibly attempt to knock out the Mimikyu with that Sludge Bomb. Either way, it's only going to be able to stop one of those Pokemon, and this opportunity choosing to target that Porygon 2 and a Destiny Bond from that Mimikyu, trying to take its opponent down with it, but James using this opportunity to set up Trick Room for himself, possibly.
Well, it looks like James going for that is actually a reversal of the Trick Room. Mimikyu not falling for it though. He knows he can stop Porygon, but he can't stop Mimikyu in the slightest. So basically, he leaves Mimikyu to Trick Room, hoping he's going to be able to reverse it. Gavin, such smart play to not buy into that and basically let James set up for himself. Salazzle now not looking so healthy. It doesn't have access to the Focus Sash. It's going to be taking damage from these Pokemon on James's side, on Gavin's side of the field. And even though they're both very frail, getting rid of them now while Trick Room's just been set up could be really important. If they get knocked out, then he can bring in his Trick Room sweepers and really do well. Of course, James has the option to waste another turn with the Trick Room play. He has to be careful going after the Mimikyu because Destiny Bond is still active on it.
Porygon 2 on James's side of the field moving before the Porygon 2 on Gavin's side, getting a knockout with an Ice Beam. Mimikyu is up next, taunting that Porygon 2, preventing it from using Recover or any other supportive moves for the remainder of this game. Flamethrower from the Salazzle, targeting the Mimikyu, hoping for that knockout, and it gets it. We're down to 2 versus 2 here in Game 1 of the Anaheim Finals.
Yeah, it does get the knockout there. Very smart play to remove that. And the Trick Room setup, though, for Gavin, I think that's very important to know that pretty much that's what it's going to be going for. The fact that Mimikyu moved and used Taunt was really good, so Salazzle was free to knock it out without having to worry about the Destiny Bond, unless, of course, it went for it again. But the Trick Room is still up, the Magnezone and the Snorlax are coming into play, and I think this might just be enough to overwhelm James. He really needs to be able to reverse the Trick Room, and then hope Salazzle can do enough here. Salazzle, unfortunately for him, doesn't have access to Protect. He's sacrificed it to get 2 attacking moves and 2 supporting moves, so the Snorlax is going to be able to take care of that. And Magnezone is pretty much left to just start wearing down this Porygon 2 for him.
Yeah, so a great position for Gavin to be in, prioritizing, how he set up Trick Room in the end, actually using his opponent to do it for him. High horsepower from that Snorlax, targeting the Salazzle, knocking it out. It's down to 1 versus 2. Porygon 2's Ice Beam, trying to stop that Magnezone from targeting it with that superpowered Thunderbolt. No freeze. Thunderbolt will connect with Porygon 2, and at this point, it's only a matter of time, especially with the help of that paralysis before this game is over, and we're on to Game 2.
Well, the paralysis does open up a very unique window. He can maybe move first in the Trick Room because of the paralysis halving his speed, get a freeze with Ice Beam, and not get knocked out by Snorlax, and then get another freeze with Ice Beam and slowly wear them down. But it's a bit of a stretch for a win condition, and we just see James lock in a forfeit here. The turn that really swung that game for Gavin was when he just let his opponent set up Trick Room. It's definitely a hard bluff to call, but knowing the way your opponent plays, getting in your opponent's mind is something that's very smart, and with James, very scared, especially after Gigalith got taken out of Trick Room going up. The only answer he had to it was to try and reverse it himself. Gavin called that fantastically, let him set that up for him, and basically was able to capitalize as soon as Mimikyu and Porygon got knocked out in that turn where he pretty much let them get knocked out.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point for Game 2, though. Really, James's only options to stop this Trick Room are either that Gigalith or stop setting up his own Trick Room to counter the Trick Room that Gavin sets up. It's pretty clear that there's not really any other options on this team. How is he going into this Game 2?
He's got to be very, very careful, of course, very cautious, I think. Having your own Trick Room not go off and the reversal attempt from James, that's going to throw you going into Game 2. You're going to be very scared to try and set up Trick Room, or at least try and make the reversal in the same turn play. the Gigalith is something he's very, very keen on bringing. It is carrying the Z Crystal, the Rockium Z, and that's obviously a big source of damage on his team, something he wants to keep around, especially with the pressure of this Araquanid here. With the Araquanid there, you know, Gigalith will be moving before it in Trick Room, but he wants to keep Trick Room up just in case Gavin brings it. We didn't see him bring it in that game, and maybe he's just like avoiding the Gigalith matchup entirely. He knows he's got things like Magnezone, which does really good damage with the Thunderbolts. He knows probably that Gigalith doesn't have a ground type attack in Earthquake, so it's not really at all threatened, only rock type attacks doing not very effective damage. And I think not having that might be costing James a little bit of pressure in this game. Having access to Earthquake here would definitely open things up.
Yeah, James once again taking a lot of time trying to think things through, but Gavin quickly locking in his Pokemon, knowing exactly how he wants to go into this match. He's only one win away from essentially only losing once throughout the entirety of this regional championship. Certainly an amazing accomplishment. It's right there. Will he be able to grab it? We'll have to see as we get started here in Game 2. Again, James EAKES versus Gavin Michaels. Everything is on the line right now. This could be the last game of this tournament even, so let's get it started.
James has got a lot of work to do if we want to get another game out of this. He immediately leads with his Gigalith Tapu Fini, something I don't usually see him lead with the Gigalith. And the Mimikyu Snorlax, the classic coming out from Gavin here.
Yeah, I believe this is maybe the third time we've seen him use this lead today, and it's great.
It's a really good lead for him. I mean, he obviously sees the Gigalith as well. It's already telegraphed for him as a play, and he's able to start hitting it with high horsepowers if he wants to. Obviously, he'd like the opportunity to set up with the Belly Drum and make those high horsepowers astonishingly powerful. But Mimikyu has options as well. Mimikyu does still have access to the Never-Ending Nightmare. You know, does have access to Play Rough as well. I don't think we have it on Gavin's. We've seen all 4 of its moves. But that kind of damage is going to be helpful. It may move Gigalith into range for a high horsepower knockout and definitely help out. So Gavin with the option to just play without the Trick Room for a little bit. And as soon as that Gigalith is removed from play, deal with it.
All right, here we go. We see Mimikyu deciding to possibly attack here with that never-ending nightmare once again. We saw it able to practically knock out, but no, it's a Z Destiny Bond, forcing James's Pokemon to target it this turn. First that Tapu Fini with the Scald, going to break that disguise. Then whatever Gigalith is going to attack with, also forced to target that Mimikyu and give Snorlax the freedom to set up Belly Drum, cutting its health in half, getting that health back thanks to its Figgy Berry activating in that pinch and maximizing its attacking power.
Well, this is certainly one way to get rid of the Gigalith. It is going for the Continental Crush, and the disguise is already busted. He's found a very easy way to get rid of it here.
Definitely 2 Z moves in 1 turn. Gavin using his Z move defensively to ensure that his Snorlax will be able to use all of that amazing attacking power moving forward. But Gigalith stopping that Mimikyu right in its tracks, unfortunately squashing it right in its tracks, knocking it right out.
Well, it's been double targeted, but the Z Destiny Bond takes its attacker down with it. He's now very competently removed Gigalith from play. It didn't have a choice. He called the double target with obviously 2 attacks. So Scald and Continental Crush. He knew Scald would break the disguise. He knew that Continental Crush would get the knockout on his Mimikyu, and Snorlax sets up for free. Gavin now has the option to set up Trick Room with an incoming Porygon 2. Snorlax with this set has access to Protect as well, so all he really needs to do is set that up. The Salazzle may slow it down for a turn or 2, but I don't think there's much this Tapu Fini can do. And Salazzle, if it spends time stopping the Trick Room with Fake Out, it gets caught with the big high horsepower. If it stops the big high horsepower, Trick Room goes up for Snorlax. So there's really not many options for Salazzle here.
Yeah, I mean, James could hope for maybe a burn from that Scald we saw in the Tapu Fini onto the Snorlax to sort of weaken its defensive powers a little bit, but Gavin playing it very safe right now, using Protect to ensure that his Snorlax will be able to make it to the next turn. Fake Out from Salazzle onto the Porygon 2, stopping the Trick Room, Scald into the Protect, and Porygon 2 is unable to move.
No, Porygon 2 unable to move. And Snorlax, even though there's nothing happening on that turn for Gavin, something very important happens for him. The Focus Sash is broken, of course, by the Salazzle, getting caught with that Sandstorm damage. So his own Gigalith kind of costing him a little bit here. The Gigalith took itself out just to deal with Mimikyu. Snorlax probably going to be able to take 2 attacks quite comfortably here, and Porygon's going to be able to set up the Trick Room. Snorlax obviously doesn't have access to Protect reliably this turn, and with the Focus Sash broken is probably going to feel quite confident to start throwing high horsepowers out. Not this turn though.
Encore from Salazzle, locking that Snorlax into Protect for the next few turns. Tapu Fini with that Scald, targeting the Snorlax, hoping for that burn. It doesn't get it. Snorlax going for a second Protect, and Porygon 2 setting up Trick Room.
Well, that Encore coming in absolutely clutch. The Fake Out buying him the turn he needs. Snorlax shouldn't have gone for that Protect. If he'd respected the Encore enough on that Salazzle, it would be, easy to attack it the first turn and let the Sandstorm deal the damage when it was actually at 1 hit point. The Scald, a very interesting choice on Tapu Fini with the Misty Terrain up. It can't benefit from the potential burn, so that's not even a way to deal with this Snorlax. The only way he's got is a way he's just found with this Encore. Snorlax potentially forced to switch out and sacrifice that Belly Drum boost it took, and then the Porygon 2 is the one thing left trying to deal damage. The Salazzle, though, not sticking around anymore.
Porygon 2 on James' side of the field coming out once again, ready to potentially reverse that Trick Room to start dealing a little bit of chip damage to that Snorlax, who then protects another turn thanks to that Encore. Porygon 2's Thunderbolt into what I'm assuming is, no, it's actually that Porygon 2, so targeting down the Salazzle, and Tapu Fini still using Scald to try and knock out that Snorlax.
Snorlax is slowly getting worn down though, and with Gavin not switching it out, it looks like he's just trying to keep it around on the field till the Encore ends. He's been Encored for 2 turns now. Obviously the first turn was a failed Protect, second turn was a successful Protect, and if he catches this Protect successfully, he's only going to be taking chip damage from the sand, and he may be able to wait out the Encore that way. James bringing in the Porygon 2 quite smart, might want to try and reverse the Trick Room while he's only got the threat of the Porygon attacking him, then he can start going all out with this Tapu Fini and the Salazzle. So James opening up a big window with that Encore. Gavin not thinking about it in the turn he decided to Protect, maybe unaware that it has it or just not expecting it to come out on this Salazzle because it's got Fake Out now, giving up Protect for it. This game it's come in absolutely clutch and opened up some windows for James to get back in this game.
Here we go. Will Snorlax get that Protect? First, we'll have to see this Porygon 2 on James's side of the field switch out and have that Salazzle take the field once again. Porygon 2 also switching out on Gavin's side of the field, revealing that his last Pokemon he brought to this game was indeed the Magnezone once again. Protect fails. Scald from the Tapu Fini will target that Snorlax. Is it enough to knock it out with the Sandstorm damage? It is, but Sandstorm running out, Encore running out, the mist disappearing from the battlefield, and there's still one more turn of Trick Room remaining.
Oh, so many things went well for Gavin in that turn. The Snorlax not getting knocked out by the Scald, and the Sandstorm ending. If the Sandstorm had taken out Snorlax, it would have been awful for him. Obviously, Salazzle comes back in the field and has access to priority Fake Out, so that could deal with Snorlax. But if he spends a turn hitting that Salazzle with the Snorlax with the Fake Out, the Magnezone is then left entirely free to deal with his Tapu Fini while Trick Room is up. So I still think Gavin's in a fantastic position here. He's forcing James to make some really tough decisions that really, there's very few that benefit him quite comfortably here. He's got to make the hard reads. He really needs Trick Room to expire, and switching out that Porygon 2, not able to switch it around for himself, could be costly for him.
Tapu Fini switching out, Porygon 2 taking the field in its place, using that download ability to boost its special attack. Snorlax protecting this turn, not wanting to lose that last sliver of health to a potential Fake Out. Salazzle does indeed target down that Snorlax with the Fake Out, and Thunderbolt from Magnezone into the Porygon 2.
Well, we do see that Snorlax, even though its Encore has ended, could just be caught with another Encore on this turn. That's something he, not this time because the Trick Room is still up, but that's something, he keeps it around so it can deal damage with high horsepower, and it looks like Magnezone may be able to knock out Porygon 2 as well. So a lot of just switching from James again, bringing in Porygon 2, getting out Tapu Fini, but the actual amount of pressure coming out from Gavin, just so overwhelming with this Trick Room up.
Salazzle switching out, Tapu Fini taking the field in its place, possibly hoping to use that Fake Out next turn to buy James more time to try and bring that offensive momentum back on his side of the field. Porygon 2 protecting this turn as well, stalling out this last turn of Trick Room. Return from Snorlax into the Porygon 2. Thunderbolt from Magnezone into the Tapu Fini switch. That will knock it out. A great read from Gavin there. Salazzle, I believe, is the last remaining Pokemon on James' side of the field now, along with that Porygon 2.
Now Salazzle's going to come back in with the Trick Room expired though, so it could put itself in a very good position. The Snorlax is going to be the last thing to move on the field, so there is definitely a window here for James. He just has to see that win condition. Salazzle can hold up Magnezone for a turn. Porygon 2 can deal with Snorlax, then he forces back in the Porygon 2, and Magnezone is then a little more liable to get attacked. It doesn't have access to Protect because of the choice specs that Gavin favors on it, and then Salazzle's able to catch it with those really big flamethrowers.
Fake out into the Magnezone, stopping it for this turn. Ice Beam from that Porygon 2. Will it knock out that Snorlax? It does not. It actually targets the Magnezone. Snorlax is free to attack this turn, using that return to knock out the Porygon 2.
James making a mistake in that turn, thinking the Snorlax was going to protect on Gavin's side of the field so it didn't get caught with the fake out. He doesn't decide to respect that and target it with the Ice Beam just to make sure. He doubles into the Magnezone, not doing enough damage. Salazzle cannot win this game on its own with just single target attacks. An error from James, I think, or a fantastic play from Gavin to just not go for that protect and really go for that damage. James just ending the game with style, a little bit of a celebration and some confetti for Gavin's side of the field.
I believe he ended that with a little bit of a Salazzle dazzle with that encore, locking that Magnezone into its choiced move. And just like that, Gavin Michaels is your